Hello and welcome back to Early Modern Philosophy. And today we want to talk about Descartes' Meditations. And first I will give you a little overview of the meditation so that you know what's happening in general. And then we will go and talk about the specifics about each one meditation and the main arguments. So first of all, meditations does not mean, like we use it today, sitting down with your legs crossed and then, just trying to empty your mind. Meditations means thinking, concentrated thinking about a problem, deep thinking about a problem, trying to solve a problem. And this is what Descartes does. There are 6 of these meditations, and each one has a particular focus. So in the first one, he is talking about doubt. He's setting the framework in which he will operate later. And this is essentially the same as what he said in the discourse about method, which we saw last time. So you can just go back to the previous video where we talked about the discourse. And Descartes says, I cannot trust my senses, I cannot trust the outside world. Perhaps I'm deceived, perhaps I am deceived by a demon. Today we would say, perhaps I am in the Matrix. I am in some situation where my mind is not working correctly. It's showing me all kinds of things that are not true, that are not real. And how do I know now what really is real? What can I know with certainty even if I am deceived by some evil demon? And this way of thinking is known as methodological doubt. Methodological doubt is different from radical doubt. So in a situation of doubt, you just doubt what you can perceive, you doubt what is real. But if your doubt is radical, then it means that it goes through and through. You don't trust anything at all, and you end up just doubting everything. And then you say, I cannot know anything about the world because I might be so fundamentally deceived that whatever I think I know about the world might be wrong. If my brain is remote controlled, then in the end, whatever I think I know can all be wrong. So if you have this kind of radical doubt, then it's very difficult to get out of it, and then you end up, being a skeptic, somebody who does not know what is true about the world. But Descartes is not like that. Descartes does not want to be a skeptic. His point is not that we should doubt everything and stop there. His point is we should doubt as part of a method that brings us to the truth. So Descartes believes that there is a truth. Doubt is not the end of all. Doubt is just a way of approaching the truth. And this is why his doubt is not radical. At the end of the doubt, there is a truth that Descartes believes in. And he's trying to find it, he's trying to unearth it. And therefore his doubt is what we call, I said it already, a methodological doubt, is a doubt that is a method for finding that truth. It's a pretend doubt, if you will, right? He's pretending to doubt everything in order to see where the pretense has to end and where we really do know something. While if you are a radical skepticist, if you are a radical doubter, you would doubt all the way through and never arrive at anything that you can believe. So this is what happens in the first meditation. Descartes is thinking, if I doubt everything, what is it that I end up with? In the second meditation, we have the discovery of the cogito, which is called cogito because of the famous statement of Descartes, cogito ergo sum. Again, we talked about it last time. Go back one episode, and there I explain what exactly this means, because he also talks about this, and I think he talks about it even more clearly, perhaps, or in a way that's easier to understand in the discourse about method. Here he repeats the same idea. So the point is that I doubt everything, I doubt and doubt and doubt, and then at some point my doubt must end. And why does it end? It ends because I realize that there is this doubting, there is this thinking. And this is something I cannot be deceived about, right? Even if I'm deceived about everything that is, the object of my thoughts, I cannot be deceived about the fact that I'm thinking. This fact itself is certain, because I am thinking that I am being deceived, right? So the thinking cannot be fake. I am thinking, indeed, I am thinking. And so this is what is the end of the doubt, right? So I doubt, but at the end, I arrive at this statement, cogito ergo sum, which means in English, I think, therefore I am, or I think, therefore I exist. And I know that I exist because I'm thinking, because something is thinking. And again, as I said last time, we don't know what the I really means. The I certainly does not mean the person who is called Rene Descartes. It certainly doesn't mean me in my clothes, and my beard and my glasses, because all these things that can be mistaken about. It just means, the minimal understanding of I think, which is something thinks. There is a thought. There is a mental state of thinking. It's not necessarily a particular person, a particular dress, a particular time, because all these things can be wrong. So something thinks. I think, therefore I am, means there is a thought, therefore there must exist something which thinks. And this leads you immediately to the rest of Descartes' philosophy, because now he says, okay, there is something which thinks, and this thing must be different from all the outside things. It must be different from the things that I perceive in my environment, cups of coffee and computers and cameras and microphones, because these things don't think, and at least they are not part of my thoughts. And what I think is the only certain thing. And so I am this thinking substance. I am a thinking thing. And these other things are not me, or they are not thinking, or they are not thinking in the way that I perceive my own thinking subjectively. They are different. They are the world of bodies, while my thoughts are the world of thought, of, the world of mind. And so this is the fundamental dichotomy between mind and matter, and Descartes goes on to elaborate that the mind has particular properties, the matter has other properties, and they are totally different substances because these properties are incompatible. For example, material things have an extension, they have a weight, while thoughts don't have an extension in space and they don't have a weight. So there must be something that is fundamentally different about them. There must be a different substance. And this leads us to substance dualism, which is the main thing about Descartes' philosophy of mind, this idea of substance dualism. There are two substances, mind and body. In reality, there are three, because there's also God, and then we, have to see how we fit God into this. But let's say, apart from God, there's mind and body. In the next meditation, in the third meditation, now things start to go a bit off the rails, because what Descartes wants to do is this fundamental methodological skepticism where he questions everything. But now he gives this up because he realizes he cannot go out of his mind in this way. He can never talk about the world. So if he wants to talk about the world, he needs the help of something that will allow him to bridge this distance between his mind and the world. And what is the only thing he can trust on is God. And so now he introduces God. And this is a really bad move for his philosophy, because suddenly this methodological doubt is not used anymore. It's thrown away, and instead now we have the belief in God. And he also said, I can only be sure of things that are clear and distinct. Now suddenly he has this image of God. And is the image of God clear and distinct? I mean, think of it in your own mind. Can you clearly and distinctly see God? Can you see God as clearly as you can see your hand or not? And probably you will say, no, I cannot see God as clearly as I see my hand, right? Therefore, God must be less real than my hand, we would say, right? Common sense. But Descartes does not see it like that. For Descartes, the idea of God has to be clear and distinct. God must exist. So this is an argument from the idea of God. Descartes says, I have this idea of God in my mind. I can, comprehend the idea of God. But how exactly do I do this? How am I able to think of God? How am I able to have this idea of God in my mind? Because if I think of it, if I have, in my mind the idea of a stone, I must have seen a stone. And my mind must be more powerful than the stone, right? There is something more that my mind does. It comprehends the stone completely, and then it can put this correct idea of the stone into my mind. I cannot comprehend things that are more complex than myself, right? My mind is limited. If my mind is limited, I cannot think of things that are more complex than those that my mind can think about. And so when I have the idea of God in my mind, and this is the idea of a being that is infinitely complex and extends to infinity and is infinitely powerful, how can I have this idea in my mind? I cannot have put it there because I myself am not infinitely powerful and infinitely big and infinitely whatever properties God has. I am much smaller, and a limited thing cannot create in itself the idea of an unlimited thing. So, in this way, Descartes concludes, God himself must have put the idea of God into my mind because I myself am unable to create this idea in my own mind. Now again, you can criticize this thought. Nobody said it's a particularly good argument, but this is how Descartes tries at this point to argue from the fact that we have the idea of God in our mind, that God must exist because he is the one who puts the idea into our minds. And now that we have established that God exists, then the next question is, can God cheat me? Can God, be someone who is out to deceive me about the world? And Descartes says not, because, if the God was a deceiving God, he would be a bad God. He would not be a perfect God. God is all good and all powerful, and therefore there is no reason to assume that God is deceiving me. So if God is good and powerful and perfect, then he must be honest. And then God has the power to help me see the world and recognize the truth of the statements that I perceive, in the world, the truths of the world. So this is, as I said, is a really bad move in terms of Descartes' skepticism, methodological skepticism, methodological doubt, because now he introduces this nebulous idea of God, and God has to be a good God, the good God will not deceive me, and so all this deceiving and the demon and so on, this is all out of the window, and now we have to believe that God will make it all good. Essentially, I think the value of, what Descartes is trying to do in terms of doubt ends by introducing God in this way. In the next meditation number 4, Descartes talks about truth and error. He asks, if God is not deceiving, then why do we make mistakes? How can we be in error ever? Why are we not always right? And he tries to blame it on us. We have an intellect, but we also have a will, and our intellect is limited. We are not gods, we are just humans, so our powers of our brain, of our mind are limited, but our will to say things in the world, to find true statements, is unlimited. And so our will is stronger than our intellect, and this causes us to sometimes say things that we just cannot verify, that are not true. This is perhaps a little similar to what you see today with large language models, where when you ask ChatGPT a question that it does not know how to answer, it will answer something because it feels that it has to answer something. It's programmed to answer something. And so in the absence of data, ChatGPT will usually, let's say, the older versions, it improves, right? But originally it was like that. It wouldn't say, I don't know. It would say something random. And so this is similar, I think, to what Descartes thinks about us. We want to say something about the world. Our intellect is not sufficient, and so therefore we fall into error and we say random things. In the next meditation 5, Descartes talks about the essence of material things, of the material world, of the world of bodies. Bodies have an extension. They have other properties, they have weight, they have all kinds of properties that our thoughts don't have. And this shows that bodies are different from minds. The material world is different from the world of the mind. These properties now can be described with mathematics and geometry, and this is why mathematics and geometry are so important, and they are reliable because God guarantees their truth. So God makes sure our mathematics and geometry are correct, and therefore it is correct what we perceive in the outside world, in the world of bodies, and the way we describe these bodies through mathematics and geometry is guaranteed by God to be correct. These ideas we have of the outside world are clear and distinct, and here it is again, right? As long as our ideas are clear and distinct, they must be correct. And they are clear and distinct because God makes them so. Again, you are right to question all this. You are right to say he is cheating here, in my opinion. You are right to say what is clear and distinct about God himself? Nothing. So, that's a problem. This is why Descartes is not the end of philosophy, he is the beginning of it, and from then on other thinkers tried to deal with these problems and to work out how things work. But regarding the material things, also Descartes is a mechanist, right? We talked about this briefly. Means that he thinks that the world operates like a machine. It is deterministic. Everything in the world of bodies is deterministic. One thing leads to the next in a causal chain, and therefore there are no spirits, there are no really random things happening in the world of bodies, but everything works like a machine. And even human beings, as far as their bodies are concerned, or animals, are just machines, right? They're just like little machines working in this deterministic causal way. And finally, meditation 6 brings us into the core of the philosophy of mind of Descartes, where he distinguishes between the world of the mind and the world of the bodies, and he tries to sort out how they interact. The fundamental problem is, if I have a world of bodies that is causally closed, whatever happens in the material world has cause that is also material, then where does the soul come in? Then perhaps the whole universe is just a material chain of causes and effects, and the soul or the mind, where is this then, right? What does it do? So what Descartes wants is that the mind has the power to influence the matter, the body. If I raise my hand, it's not only because my nerves did something and my cells did something and my muscles did something, but it should be because I want to raise my hand, right? There's a mental state, my wanting to raise the hand. There is a mental state of maybe planning what to do with my hand, right? I have a purpose in life, and raising my hand is part of this purpose. And so all these things, my mind is free to have purposes, to have plans, to do things. And then I must explain, if I am Descartes, how can the mind that is not material interfere in these material chains, and how can it create any physical effect? And this is a very big problem in the philosophy of mind, and it still is today a problem about dualism. As soon as you say I have a material world and I have a spiritual world or a mental world, then how do the two interact? And again, Descartes, of course, at his time it was particularly difficult. He didn't have any knowledge of neurophysiology or neurons or whatever, activation potentials, neural networks. So the only thing he knew was the brain. Okay, the brain is doing something. What is it doing? The brain, or parts of the brain, are mediating, he says, between the mind and the body. So the brain has a particular gland in it called the pineal gland. People didn't know what this is for. It's a part in the inside of the brain, hidden, a little organ. And Descartes says this is it. This pineal gland is the thing that is so sensitive that any thought can move it around, and by moving it, the thought then creates a physical manifestation. This thing moves, and this is like, you can imagine, like a joystick that then controls the body. So the thoughts move this pineal gland, which is very light, very, very movable, very sensitive, and by moving, then this moves my arms and it moves my body, and I'm able to move around under the direction of my thoughts. Now again, lots of philosophers after Descartes, even at the time of Descartes, questioned this. Elizabeth of Bohemia, who wrote letters to Descartes, was one of the first ones to complain about the pineal gland. Later, Spinoza made fun of Descartes because of that. And until today, as I said, this is a problem in the philosophy of mind. If you are a dualist, you have to explain the problem of mind-body interaction in some way. And Descartes' solution with the pineal gland obviously does not work at all, because the pineal gland then should still be something material. And how can the material thing be moved by something immaterial? So he's trying to, refine the material so much that it becomes, tangible to the immaterial, like a sail that can be pushed by the wind, and the wind is only half material, or something like this. But all these intuitions obviously does not work, because the sail is material, the wind is material. If I really have something immaterial, it can never move something material at all. And so, we are stuck there. Descartes is stuck there. And the meditations end essentially at this point where he describes this interface between the body and the mind, and how the mind controls the body, in his opinion. Okay, thank you. This was a brief outline of how the meditations work, what the 6 meditations are about. And now we will go in the next episodes and look a little bit at particular arguments from the meditations. Thank you, and see you in the next one.